The sun bled orange across the mud walls of the compound in Allara village, casting long shadows that looked like fingers reaching for the thatched roofs. Bisola, barely 14 reigns old, sat on the low wooden stool outside the kitchen, shelling melon seeds with quick, nervous fingers. Her mother, Mama Adeola, stirred the egusi soup inside, humming an old Yoruba lullaby that once made Bisola feel safe. Now the same song felt heavy, like a warning. The compound gate creaked open and Baba Adewale stepped in, tall and broad, his agbada dusty from the journey to the next village. His eyes found Bisola first, lingering too long, and the girl's stomach twisted the way it always did now. Baba Adewale dropped his traveling bag and smiled the smile that used to mean bedtime stories and roasted corn. "My beautiful flower," he called, voice thick with palm wine. Bisola forced her lips upward, but her hands shook so hard that melon seeds scattered across the red earth like tiny white tears. Mama Adeola came out wiping her hands on her wrapper, greeting her husband with the respect a wife must show. Yet her eyes flicked to Bisola and away again, quick as a lizard. Something unsaid hung between mother and daughter, thick as the smoke rising from the firewood. Night insects began their chorus. Baba Adewale washed his hands and face at the clay pot near the mango tree, singing off-key. Bisola's younger brothers ran to hug his legs, laughing, unaware. Only Bisola saw how his gaze kept returning to her developing chest beneath the faded Ankara blouse. She felt suddenly naked though fully clothed. When he called her to bring his bathing water inside the room, her heart beat like a trapped bird against her ribs. Inside the dim sleeping room, the lantern flame danced low. Baba Adewale closed the door with a soft click that sounded to Bisola like the closing of a trap. "Come and greet your father properly," he said, patting the mat beside him. The smell of palm wine and sweat filled the small space. Bisola stood frozen by the doorway, clutching the plastic kettle until her knuckles went pale. Outside, Mama Adela's lullaby had stopped. Only the crickets remained. He rose and took the kettle from her trembling hands. The first touch of his fingers on her wrist burned like hot iron. Bisola wanted to scream, but the compound walls were thin and her brothers slept just beyond the curtain. When he pulled her close and whispered that this was how a father showed special love, the world narrowed to the sound of her own heart breaking. That night, under the watchful eye of the ancestors painted on the wall, Bisola learned that some shadows are made by the people meant to protect you from darkness. Dawn crept in pale and ashamed. Pain pulsed between her thighs, sharp and accusing. She could still smell her father on her skin. When she tried to stand, her knees buckled and she fell, biting her lip so hard it bled to keep from crying out. Mama Adeola was already sweeping the compound when Bisola limped out. Their eyes met across the yard. The broom stopped moving. For one heartbeat, Bisola thought her mother would run to her, gather her up, scream at the sky. Instead, Mama Adela's gaze dropped to the bloodstain darkening Bisola's wrapper. Something died behind the woman's eyes. She turned away and swept harder, as though she could sweep the night itself into the dustpan. Baba Adewale emerged from the room stretching and yawning, loud and cheerful, greeting neighbors over the fence as if the world had not cracked open. He ruffled Bisola's hair when he passed her, a casual fatherly gesture that made vomit rise in her throat. "Good morning, my wife," he called to Mama Adeola. "Hope the soup is plenty today." His voice was sunshine. Bisola's soul was midnight. The younger children clamored for breakfast, oblivious. Flies settled on the blood dried between her legs, and she did not brush them away. She felt marked now, like a goat chosen for sacrifice, waiting for the knife that had already fallen once and would fall again. By the time the sun climbed high, Bisola had learned the first bitter lesson. Silence has a price heavier than shouting. That evening, Mama Adeola waited until the children slept. She carried a small clay lamp into the backyard where the orange tree grew. Kneeling, she dug a shallow hole with her bare hands and buried a single bitter cola, whispering prayers to Osun and to her own long-dead mother. Tears fell onto the earth as she begged the gods to blind her husband's eyes or strike him dead. But the gods, it seemed, were listening somewhere far away. She returned to the room she shared with Baba Adewale and lay stiff as a corpse when he reached for her in the dark. "What is wrong with you?" he hissed, annoyed. Mama Adeola turned her face to the wall and said nothing. The silence stretched until it snapped. His open hand struck her cheek with a sound like splitting wood. "A woman does not deny her husband," he warned. The next day, she went to Mama Abeji, the oldest woman in Allara, who chewed alligator pepper and saw spirits in calabash water. Mama Abeji listened without blinking. When the story ended, the old woman spat red juice into the dust and said, "Your husband has eaten the forbidden thing. The ancestors will punish him, but not soon enough for your daughter. You must send the girl away." Mama Adeola wept then, because sending Bisola away meant admitting to the whole village what kind of man she had married, and shame is a chain heavier than iron. So she bought time with small rebellions. She cooked his soup without salt, burned his best shirts by accident, locked the inner door at night, and pretended to be asleep. Each small defiance earned her a beating, but she wore the bruises like armor. Still, when Baba Adewale's shadow fell across Bisola's mat again and again, Mama Adeola could only stand outside the door clutching her wrapper to her mouth so the screams would not escape. In the quiet hours before dawn, Mama Adeola began to waste away. Her once round cheeks sank. Her eyes grew large and haunted. She moved through the compound like a ghost who had forgotten how to leave. 3 moons after the first night, Bisola's belly began to rise like unfortunate dough. At first she thought it was the constant vomiting, the way food turned to stone in her stomach. Then her monthly flow never came. She sat behind the house one afternoon pressing her hands against the small hardness, whispering, "No, no, no," as though words could push the horror back inside and undo it. She told no one, not even the moon. She started binding her stomach with tight wrappers, wearing her brother's old shirts, walking bent over like an old woman carrying firewood. But nothing hides from a mother's eyes forever. One evening, Mama Adeola caught her retching behind the banana trees and saw the swell beneath the wrapper. The world stopped spinning for both of them. Mama Adeola dragged Bisola into the room and made her lift the cloth. When she saw the unmistakable curve, she fell to her knees and let out a sound no human throat should make. Half scream, half dying animal. She beat the floor with her fists until they bled. Bisola stood trembling, waiting for her mother to hold her. Instead, Mama Adeola whispered, "If you speak one word of this, they will drive us both from the village. Your father will say you are a witch who seduced him. They will stone you first, me second." The words were knives sharper than any cutlass. That night, Mama Adeola mixed herbs in a clay cup, strong, bitter things that make a womb reject what grows inside. She stood over Bisola with tears streaming, the cup shaking in her hand. Bisola looked up at her mother and saw not love, but terror. She took the cup, drank it all, then vomited blood and bile until morning. The child stayed. The ancestors, it seemed, had turned their faces away. Bisola learned the second bitter lesson. Some sins are so heavy, even poison refuses to carry them out. 9 moons after the first night, under a sky raining like the gods themselves were weeping, Bisola gave birth on the mud floor of the backyard. Mama Adeola had chased everyone away, claiming fever. She caught the baby herself with hands that shook too hard to tie the cord properly at first. The child was a girl, tiny and perfect, with Baba Adewale's wide forehead and Bisola's mouth. When the infant cried, it sounded like an accusation. Baba Adewale stood in the doorway watching, arms folded, a small proud smile on his face as though he had done something praiseworthy. He named the child Omabalanol, child born into wealth, before Mama Adeola could protest. The name burned Bisola's ears like acid. She turned her face to the wall and refused to look at the baby. Milk came anyway, leaking through her wrapper, soaking the mat with shameful white tears. Neighbors brought gifts of beans and palm oil, congratulating Mama Adeola on her grandchild. Each lie tasted like ash in the women's mouths. Mama Abeji came, took one look at the infant's forehead, and spat on the ground before leaving without a word. The compound filled with the smell of new life and old death. At night, Bisola lay staring at the thatch roof, while Omabalanol slept in a cradle made from an old basket. Sometimes the baby cried, and Bisola's breasts ached so fiercely she had to feed her, hating every second that soft mouth pulled at her body. She whispered to the child, "I did not ask for you," and then wept because the baby had not asked to be born either. In the compound, life pretended to go on. Baba Adewale bought new cloth for himself and told people his daughter had been spoiled by a boy from another village who ran away. People nodded and looked away. Shame has a way of making everyone suddenly blind. Bisola, 15 reigns now, carried her father's sin in her arms and felt the weight of it growing heavier every day, like a stone tied around a drowning child's neck. The Harmattan wind arrived early that year, dry and cruel, cracking lips and hearts alike. Omabalanol was 7 months old, crawling everywhere, her laughter the only pure sound left in the compound. Bisola had learned to smile at the baby in daylight, to sing her the same lullabies Mama Adeola once sang. But when night fell, the old terror returned like a debt collector. One evening, Baba Adewale sent the boys to sleep at their uncle's house so they could play with cousins. Mama Adeola's eyes widened. She knew the signs. She tried to keep Bisola beside her in the kitchen, but he sent her for more firewood, then more water, then to pound pepper until it is fine like sand. Each task pulled Bisola farther from her mother's reach. When the moon rose thin and sharp, Baba Adewale called Bisola into the storeroom behind the house. The smell of dried fish and palm oil choked her. He locked the wooden door with a stick. This time Bisola fought. She scratched his face, bit his arm until she tasted blood. He struck her so hard her ears rang like village gongs. "You think because you have borne one, you are now a woman with rights," he hissed. The second violation was worse than the first because now she knew exactly what was coming and could do nothing to stop it. Afterwards, he left her on the floor among sacks of Gary, warning her to clean herself before anyone saw. Bisola lay there until the cock crowed twice, staring at a single spider spinning its web in the corner. She decided the spider was braver than she was. At least it could trap what tried to harm it. Mama Adeola found her at dawn, curled like a dead thing. When she understood what had happened again, she did not scream. She simply sat on the floor and rocked her daughter the way she once rocked newborn babies, whispering, forgive me," until the words lost all meaning. Mama Adeola doubled the dose this time. She walked 2 markets away to a woman who sold things that make the moon come early. The woman took one look at Mama Adeola's hollow eyes and refused money, pressing the dark powder into her palm instead. "This one is strong," she warned. "It may take the girl with it." Bisola drank 3 nights in a row. Each time she woke vomiting black liquid, clutching her belly, praying to die. Each morning she lived. The child inside clung like a curse. Mama Adeola sat beside her, bathing her forehead with cool water, singing the songs of repentant mothers who have failed their young. On the 7th day, Bisola stood up, weak but alive, and looked her mother in the eye. "Stop trying to kill what is already dead inside me," she said quietly. The words hung between them like smoke that would never clear. From that day, Mama Adeola stopped the herbs. She began saving kobo by kobo instead, hiding coins in an old Milo tin buried beneath the orange tree. She did not yet know what the money was for, only that one day it would buy distance. The baby took her first steps the day Bisola realized she was pregnant again. Omabalanol tottered across the compound laughing, arms out for balance, falling into Bisola's lap. The girl caught her child sister and felt the new life kick inside her own womb at the exact same moment. Joy and horror collided so violently she had to sit down hard on the ground. Baba Adewale watched from the veranda, smiling his proud father smile for any neighbor who might pass. "See how my granddaughter loves her mother," he called out. The words tasted like poison in Bisola's mouth. She pressed Omabalanol's head against her chest so the child would not see her cry. That night, Bisola took a small knife and held it to her throat in the darkness of the latrine. The blade trembled against her skin. Omabalanol's laughter from earlier echoed in her ears, the feel of tiny arms reaching for her. She lowered the knife and wept until there were no tears left, only dry sobs that hurt her throat. Desperate, Mama Adeola took Bisola across the river to a dibia, famed for breaking curses. The old man lived in a hut painted with white chalk symbols. He burned herbs and stared into a bowl of water for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was sad. "The man has poured his seed and his shadow into the girl. The shadow is stronger than the seed. Until the shadow is cut away, the children will keep coming." He gave them a small gourd filled with black powder. "This will make him sleep like the dead for 3 days. Use it only once. After that, the ancestors will demand payment. Mama Adeola paid with her gold earrings, the last gift from her own mother. On the way home, neither woman spoke. The river water looked thick and red under the setting sun. Mama Adeola stirred the powder into Baba Adewale's evening palm wine. He drank greedily, complaining about the taste, then slumped across the mat, snoring louder than thunder. For the first time in years, the compound was utterly quiet at night. Bisola and her mother sat under the orange tree with Omabalinal sleeping between them. Moonlight painted their faces silver. Mama Adeola whispered the plan she had carried like a secret pregnancy. They would run to Lagos, to her cousin who sold tomatoes in mile 12. The Milo tin held enough for bus fare and 1 month's rent. They would leave before the 3 days ended. Bisola listened, then asked the question that broke her mother's heart. "And when he wakes and comes to find us? You know he will." Mama Adeola had no answer. They sat in silence until the cock crowed, fear winning again. On the third morning, Baba Adewale woke raging, head pounding, remembering nothing but tasting something wrong. He accused Mama Adeola of trying to poison him. When she denied it, he beat her with the leather belt he used on the goats. The buckle opened a cut above her eye. Blood ran into her mouth. Bisola watched from the doorway holding Omabalinal. When he raised the belt again, something snapped inside her. She stepped forward and said clearly, "Touch her again, and I will go to the king's palace today and tell everything." The words surprised even her. Baba Adewale lowered the belt slowly. For the first time, fear flickered across his face. He looked from daughter to wife, calculating. Then he laughed, short and ugly. "Try it," he said. "They will say you are mad, or a witch, or that you wanted it." He walked away whistling. Mama Adeola lay bleeding on the ground. Bisola knelt, pressing a cloth to the wound. Their eyes met, and in that moment both understood. Words were not enough anymore. Bisola began visiting Mama Abeji after school hours, carrying Omabalinal on her back. The old woman taught her things mothers usually teach daughters much later. How to brew certain leaves that make a man's manhood soft for months. How to recognize the herbs that cause barrenness without killing. How to whisper to the ancestors so they listen. Every evening Bisola practiced in the backyard, grinding seeds with a stone, hiding the mixtures in empty Maggi cubes. Mama Adeola pretended not to see. Some nights Bisola woke to find her mother watching her with pride and terror mingled. The boy was born during the festival of Osun, when the whole village was at the river. Bisola labored alone in the house because Mama Adeola could not risk drawing attention. She bit down on a stick so no sound would escape. When the baby finally slid out, blue-black and angry, Bisola cut the cord with her teeth. She named him Allayinka, wealth selects me, because bitterness has its own kind of humor. Baba Adewale came home drunk from the festival, saw the child, and declared him my strong son. He did not notice Bisola's eyes were dead. Neighbors assumed the same runaway boy had struck again. Some shook their heads and whispered that Bisola was unlucky with men. She heard them and said nothing. Auntie Bose, Mama Adela's cousin, arrived unannounced one market day. She took one look at the compound, the bruises on Mama Adela's arms, Bisola's hollow eyes, the two small children who looked too much like their grandfather, and understood everything without a word. That night she spoke to Mama Adeola in the kitchen while Bisola pretended to sleep. "Bring the girl and the children," she said. "I have a room behind my stall. No man will find you in mile 12. Mama Adeola cried silently into her wrapper. They left at 3 a.m., when the village slept deepest. Mama Adeola carried Allayinka tied to her back. Bisola carried Omabalinal and the small bag with 2 wrappers each. The Milo tin of money was sewn inside Mama Adela's brassiere. At the compound gate, Bisola paused and looked back at the house where her childhood had died. She spat on the ground, a small, fierce sound in the darkness. Then she stepped into the bush path that led to the motor park. Behind them, dogs began to bark as though the ancestors themselves were sounding the alarm. The bus was old and smelled of petrol and vomit. They squeezed into the back row. Omabalinal fell asleep immediately. Allayinka cried until Bisola gave him her breast, though it hurt. Mama Adeola stared out the window as Allara village disappeared behind hills. Halfway to Lagos, Baba Adewale's younger brother boarded at a checkpoint. He greeted them cheerfully, asked where they were going. Mama Adela's heart stopped. She said they were visiting a sick relative in Ibadan. He nodded and got down at the next stop. None of them breathed until the bus moved again. Lagos swallowed them whole. Tomatoes, noise, sweat, diesel fumes. Auntie Bose's room was a tiny space partitioned with plywood, but it had a door that locked. For the first time in years, Bisola slept without fear of footsteps in the night. She and Mama Adeola began selling pepper and uga by day. The children played among the crates. Money was small, but it was theirs. 3 months later, a letter came through a driver who knew Auntie Bose. Baba Adewale had fallen sick. Mysterious illness, the letter said. His manhood had swollen and turned black. The Dibia in Allara could do nothing. He was begging his wife to come home and pray for him. Mama Adeola read the letter aloud. When she finished, Bisola took it, tore it into tiny pieces, and scattered them into the gutter where sewage ran. The pieces floated away like white butterflies. Auntie Bose took them to a pastor who wrote new names in a big book. Bisola became Funmaleo. Mama Adeola became Grace. The children kept their names. Some things cannot be escaped, only carried. In the evenings, Funmaleo taught herself to read better from discarded newspapers. She traced the letters with her finger and whispered, "One day I will write my own story, and no one will change the ending." One rainy afternoon, a man stood at the entrance to Auntie Bose's stall staring at the children. He was thinner, walking with a stick, but the wide forehead was unmistakable. Baba Adewale had found them. He did not shout. He simply looked at Bisola, now Funmaleo, and said, "I am dying. Come home." His voice cracked on the last word. Funmaleo felt every eye in the market turn toward them. She picked up a long knife used for cutting ugu, the blade catching the weak sunlight. "The only home you have left is the one you made in my body," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Now leave before I cut the rest of you away." Market women began to gather, murmuring. Someone recognized the story. Someone else picked up a stick. Baba Adewale looked around at the circle of angry faces and understood for the first time that some crimes have consequences that follow you even to the grave. He turned and limped away into the rain. They never saw him again. The sun rises red over Lagos, and Funmaleo, once Bisola, is already counting tomatoes into plastic bowls before the first customer arrives. She is 20 now, tall and straight-backed, her face calm like still water hiding crocodiles beneath. Omabalanal, now 5, helps stack onions in neat pyramids, singing primary school songs in a voice clear as a bell. Alayinka, almost 4, chases lizards between the crates with other market children. Auntie Bose has grown fat and prosperous. She calls Funmaleo my daughter manager because the stall now has 3 branches. At the far end of the row, Mama Grace, once Mama Adeola, sits under a blue umbrella selling cooked beans and dodo. Her face has filled out again, laughter lines replacing the old sorrow grooves. She still flinches sometimes when a man's shadow falls across her tray, but the flinch is smaller every year. In the evenings, the 4 of them, 5 when Auntie Bose closes early, sit on plastic chairs behind the stall sharing one big bowl of EBA and okra soup, talking about everything except the village they left. One afternoon, a woman in expensive lace stops to buy pepper. She stares too long at Omabalanal's forehead, then at Funmaleo's eyes, then whispers, "You are the girl from Allara, ABI? The one whose father." Funmaleo does not let her finish. She smiles the slow smile Mama Adeji taught her and says, "That girl died. This one was born the day she boarded the bus. Buy or leave, madam." The woman buys 20 kilos and never returns. At night, when the market sleeps and generators cough themselves quiet, Funmaleo sometimes wakes sweating from dreams of mud walls and a man's weight. She lights a candle, checks that the children are breathing, then goes back to sleep. The dreams come less often now. Lagos is loud enough to drown most ghosts. Some mornings she stands at the edge of the expressway and watches the sun climb over a million roofs. She whispers thanks to whatever gods finally listened and promises them, "I am becoming something he never imagined." A yellow envelope arrives with a trader returning from Ife. The handwriting is shaky. Someone wrote it for an illiterate person. Funmaleo knows before she opens it. Inside, Baba Adewale is dead. The swelling traveled from his groin to his belly to his throat. On the final night, he could not swallow even water. He kept trying to say a name, hers, and died choking on it. The elders buried him quickly, outside the village wall, without mourning drums. No one claimed his body for proper rites. Mama Grace reads the letter twice, folds it small, and burns it over the kerosene stove. The flames eat his name. She does not cry. Instead, she buys a big ram the next market day and shares the meat with every poor person in mile 12. Redemption feast. She calls it, though she never explains for him. That night, Funmaleo walks to the lagoon alone. She carries the small black calabash Mama Abeji gave her years ago, still sealed, still unused. She weighs it in her palm, then hurls it as far as she can into the black water. It lands with a soft plop and disappears. She does not know if the curses were already working or if death came on its own. It is enough that it came. When she returns, Omabalanal is waiting up, rubbing sleepy eyes. "Auntie, were you crying?" the child asks. Funmaleo kneels and kisses her forehead. No, her daughter's forehead. "No, my love. I was only closing a very old door." Omabalanal is clever the way sharp knives are clever. One Sunday after church, she sits on the steps behind the stall and asks, "Why don't we have a daddy like other children? And why does grandma cry when she thinks no one sees?" Funmaleo's heart stops, then starts again harder. She sits beside her daughter and tells the first gentle lie. "Your daddy was a soldier. He died saving people before you were born." Omabalanal nods solemnly, satisfied for now. But Funmaleo knows the questions will grow teeth one day. She begins saving for secondary school, boarding school, far away, where no village tongue can reach. That night, she dreams Mama Abeji is sitting under the Irako tree again. The old woman says, "Truth is a seed. Plant it too early and the chickens will eat it. Plant it too late and it rots. You will know the season when it comes." Funmaleo wakes with the taste of earth in her mouth. Auntie Bo's pastor friend brings news. A Women S Foundation of Lagos is looking for bright market girls to sponsor through university. Funmaleo writes the essay at night by lantern light, fingers cramped around the pen. She writes about a girl who carried water on her head and pain in her belly, who learned that education is the only revenge that leaves your hands clean. 3 months later, the letter comes on thick cream paper. Full scholarship to study law at the University of Lagos, beginning next session. Mama Grace dances in the market until her wrapper comes loose. Auntie Bo slaughters 2 chickens and throws a party that lasts till dawn. Funmaleo stands in the middle of all the noise and feels something inside her chest crack open, not breaking, but hatching. She looks at her children dancing with the other market kids and makes them a promise she carves into her heart. "I will build a wall of books so high no man will ever climb over it again." The campus gates are painted blue and gold. Funmaleo steps through wearing the first pair of shoes she ever bought with her own money. Simple black sandals, but they shine. She carries one suitcase and the small wooden box that holds Mama Ibeji's Kaura necklace, the only thing she kept from the old life. Freshmen stare because she is older than most, because her eyes do not laugh easily. Because when a boy tries to carry her bag, she says, "I have carried heavier things than this since I was 12. Word spreads quickly. Do not play with the market girl from mile 12. In her first lecture, Introduction to Nigerian Legal System, she sits in the front row and takes notes so fast the pen tears the paper. The professor, a woman with gray braids, notices. After class, she asks Funmaleo's name. When she hears it, she smiles and says, "I think the law just gained a warrior." Second semester, a man waits outside her hostel gate. He is old now, bent, wearing the same faded agbada from years ago. Uncle Kunal, Baba Adewale's younger brother, the one who once boarded their bus. He has come to beg. "Your cousins need school fees. Their father left nothing. Blood is blood," he pleads. Funmaleo looks at him for a long time. Rain begins to fall, soft Lagos rain that smells of diesel and hope. She remembers the day he smiled on the bus and said nothing while Evil sat 3 seats away. She reaches into her bag, pulls out 5,000 naira, exactly what she had planned to buy textbooks with, and presses it into his hand. "Tell them their cousin paid with pain," she says. "Interest is high. This is the last coin they will ever get from my blood." She walks away without looking back. The rain washes the campus path clean. Aliyinka falls ill with malaria that turns cerebral. Hospital bills climb faster than Funmaleo can count. She sells her laptop, pawns Mama Grace's last gold chain, stands in the corridor at 3 a.m., bargaining with God the way market women bargain for tomatoes. On the 3rd night, the boy opens his eyes and whispers, "Mummy, don't cry. I dreamed angels were carrying me." but I told them I have to stay and protect my sister. Funmaleo breaks then, sobbing into his small hot hand until the nurses gently pull her away. He survives. When he is strong enough to eat mwamwa, she feeds him with a spoon and tells him stories about a brave prince who fought dragons. She never says the dragon shared their blood. Years later, practicing in a small chambers near the high court, Funmaleo receives a case file. A 13-year-old girl pregnant by her stepfather, mother too afraid to testify. The details are so familiar her hands shake as she reads. That night she dreams she is back in the old compound, knife in hand, cutting something that screams with her father's voice. She wakes gasping, but instead of fear there is only cold purpose. She takes the case pro bono. In court she tears the stepfather apart with questions so precise they draw blood without touching him. The girl is placed in a safe home. The man gets 15 years. When the judge thanks counsel, Funmaleo bows and feels Mama Ibeji smiling somewhere beyond the veil. Graduation day is Golden Harmattan's sun and proud tears. Mama Grace wears the aso oak she has been sewing secretly for 2 years. Omabalanol, now 11, carries the program like a treasure. Alayinka, 9, refuses to remove his sister's old blazer even though it hangs to his knees. When Funmaleo's name is called, best graduating student in law, she walks across the stage feeling every scar on her soul turn into wings. The vice-chancellor places the prize in her hands, a beautiful leather-bound book of Nigerian statutes. She lifts it high so her family can see, and for one perfect moment the path cannot touch them. That night they eat pepper soup and dance to Fela in Onibo's compound. Mama Grace pulls her daughter close and whispers, "Your father wanted to bury you. Look how high you have grown instead." Funmaleo laughs until she cries, and no one can tell which is which. 10 years after they fled, Funmaleo drives back to Allara village in a second-hand Toyota. She wears a black suit and carries court orders. The village has changed, electricity poles, a new school, but the Irako tree still stands. Mama Ibeji died 2 rains ago. Her grave is a mound of flowers. Funmaleo walks straight to the Bail's palace and lays documents on the mat. Title deeds, signed by the state governor, transferring the entire compound where nightmares happened into a refuge for abused girls, Bisola House. The land was bought with every kobo she saved, every prize, every tear. The elders argue, threaten, plead. She waits until they are quiet, then speaks in the calm voice that breaks wicked men in court. That house ate my childhood. Now it will feed other children's futures. Try to stop me, and the whole world will hear what grows in Allara when good men keep silent. They sign. She plants an orange tree where the old one died and hangs a sign. No child will ever be buried alive here again. Then she drives away without entering the house itself. Some doors, once closed by force, must stay closed by choice. On the road back to Lagos, Omabalanol, now a teenager herself, asks softly, "Mummy, was that where?" Funmaleo nods once. Her daughter reaches over and takes her hand. They drive into the sunset holding tight. 2 generations carrying the same blood, but writing a different story across the sky. The refuge opens on a quiet Tuesday in the rainy season. The first girl to arrive is 12-year-old Ronk, carried in by a policewoman because her legs will no longer hold her after what her uncle did for 2 years. Funmaleo kneels in the red dust of the new courtyard, takes the child's trembling hands, and says the words she once needed to hear. "You are safe now. Nothing that happened was your fault. This house belongs to girls who were told to be quiet. Here, we will teach you how to speak until the world listens." Ronk cries so hard she vomits, and Funmaleo holds her hair back the way Mama Grace once held hers. By nightfall, 3 more girls arrive. The youngest is 9. Funmaleo tucks them into beds painted sky blue, reads them a story about a lioness who grew wings, and leaves the door open with a lantern burning. She stands outside under the new orange tree and lets herself cry only when no child can see. Mama Grace finds her there, wraps her in an old wrapper, and says, "You are planting a forest, my daughter. Trees take time." In the weeks that follow, Funmaleo learns new kinds of exhaustion. Midnight nightmares that send girls screaming down corridors. Mothers who arrive begging to take their daughters back so the family will not scatter. Police officers who want bribes to file reports. Each time she feels the old darkness rising in her throat, she goes to the common room and watches the girls teaching each other to read under the solar lamp. Their laughter is medicine stronger than any herb Mama Abeji ever gave her. One evening Ronk draws a picture, a big woman with a wig and gown holding a small girl's hand while a monster burns behind them. She gives it to Funmaleo shyly. Funmaleo pins it above her desk where every donor and journalist will see it first. Some truths are too heavy for words. Crayon and paper sometimes carry them better. Years later, when people ask how Bisola House survived the early days with almost no money, Funmaleo will answer, "For little girls decided they were worth saving. I only followed their lead." A high-profile pastor is accused of raping 6 girls in his deliverance home. The families are terrified to testify. The man has police and politicians in his pocket. The case lands on Funmaleo's desk like a live bomb. She reads the files at 3 a.m. and feels 15 years old again, tasting blood in her mouth. She almost refuses it. Then she remembers Ronk's drawing and accepts. The first hearing is chaos. Journalists, church members waving placards, death threats slipped under her office door. Someone pours acid on her car. Mama Grace wants her to drop the case. Omabalinal, now 15, says quietly, "Mummy, if you run from this one, every girl in Bisola House will learn that monsters always win." Funmaleo kisses her daughter's forehead and goes back to work. In court, she is merciless. She brings former victims who are now women, dresses them in the same blue uniforms the refuge girls wear, and lets them tell their stories one by one until the courtroom smells of tears. On the final day, she plays a secret recording of the pastor boasting that small girls are sweeter because they don't know how to talk. The public gallery erupts. Even the judge wipes her eyes. The pastor gets 25 years. As he is led away in handcuffs, he screams that Funmaleo is a witch sent to destroy men of God. She looks straight at him and answers, loud enough for the microphones, "No, Pastor, I am the child you and men like you forgot to kill. We grow up." The video trends for weeks. Donations flood Bisola House. Someone starts calling her the Lioness of Lagos. She hates the nickname, but lets the girls keep the t-shirts. They celebrate quietly in the refuge courtyard because Omabalinal asked for no loud party. She wants only the people who matter: Mama Grace, Auntie Bose, Alayinka, the refuge girls, and Funmaleo. There is jollof rice, one cake with 18 candles, and a sky full of harmattan stars. After the cake, Omabalinal stands and asks everyone to sit in a circle. She is tall now, with Funmaleo's eyes and a gentleness that survived everything. She says, "Tonight, I want the real story. All of it. I am ready." The younger girls look frightened. Some already know pieces. Mama Grace begins to cry silently. Funmaleo feels the old fear clawing at her ribs, but she nods. Truth's season has come. She tells them everything. The compound, the nights, the pregnancies, the flight, the herbs, the calabash she finally drowned in the lagoon. She does not soften a single detail. When she reaches the part about the children's true father, Omabalinal reaches for Alayinka's hand without hesitation. Not once does she look away from her mother. When Funmaleo finishes, the courtyard is so quiet the crickets sound like drums. Then Ronk, now 17 and training to be a nurse, stands up, walks to Funmaleo, and hugs her so tightly the older woman staggers. One by one, every girl in the refuge does the same until Funmaleo is buried under love too fierce for tears. Omabalinal is last. She whispers against her mother's ear, "Thank you for trusting me with your pain. Now I can carry my own name proudly." That night, Funmaleo sleeps without dreams for the first time in 23 years. Alayinka is 20 now, studying engineering on scholarship, quiet and serious like a boy carrying a load no one else can see. One afternoon, he comes home from university and finds Funmaleo in her office. He closes the door and says, "I know who my father was." Funmaleo's heart stops. She has dreaded this day since the night he was born on the mud floor. He continues, voice steady. "I read the court transcripts from the pastor case. Someone posted the old village records online. I saw the dates. I added them myself." He pauses, then kneels in front of her chair the way children kneel to elders. "You are my mother and my hero. Blood does not decide who raises a man. Choices do. I choose you every day." Funmaleo tries to speak. Alayinka takes a small wooden carving from his pocket, a lioness with cubs, and places it on her desk. "I made this in workshop." For the woman who taught me that monsters can create life, but only love can raise it. Then he hugs her, tall boy that he is, and she finally understands that some chains break not with noise, but with gentleness. A human rights lawyer named Chike has been courting Funmaleo for 2 years, patiently, respectfully, never pushing. He is kind to the refuge girls, brings them books, fixes broken generators without being asked. One evening, he finds her under the orange tree and says, "I know what was done to your body and your trust. I am not asking you to forget. I am asking if you would let me walk beside you for whatever years we have left." Funmaleo stares at him for a long time. She thinks of Mama Abeji's warning about the tree that closes a woman's womb forever. She thinks of the night she chose barrenness over more children of violence. Then she looks at the refuge girls playing football in the courtyard and realizes some women birth nations instead of babies. She tells Chike yes, but only if the wedding is small and the girls are bridesmaids. They marry at the registry with 20 giggling girls in matching ankara, Mama Grace shedding happy tears, Auntie Bose spraying money like rain. That night, Chike holds her with infinite care and asks nothing more than to fall asleep listening to her heartbeat. For the first time in her life, touch does not feel like punishment. The new Baal invites Funmaleo to receive a chieftaincy title, Ye Ma, by night of the law, mother who protects daughters. Many elders still hate her for exposing their silence years ago. She almost refuses. Then Ronk, now a nursing student, says, "Go and collect it, Auntie. Make them say the title with your name every time they speak of protecting girls. Force them to remember." She goes. The ceremony is tense. Some old men will not clap. When the coral beads are placed around her neck, she speaks not in gratitude but in warning. These beads are not for beauty. They are a debt. Any elder who fails another girl while I wear them will answer to me and to every child I have saved. She stares at each elder in turn until several look away. The younger women in the crowd cheer so loudly the drummers almost lose the beat. A letter arrives with no stamp, pushed under the refuge gate. Inside is a single photograph. Funmaleo at 15, heavily pregnant, standing beside Baba Adewale at a naming ceremony she was forced to attend. On the back, in red ink, "People deserve to know where their savior really comes from." She recognizes the handwriting of a journalist who has been asking uncomfortable questions. For one terrible hour, she considers resigning from every board, closing the refuge, disappearing. Then she calls a meeting of all the girls, past and present, who ever lived in Bisola House. She shows them the photograph. She tells them the full story again, every ugly detail. The vote is unanimous. Publish it ourselves, with their permission, on the refuge website, titled, "This is the girl your donations saved. This is why we fight." Within hours, the story goes viral across Africa. Donations triple. A Ghanaian musician writes a song called Bisola Rising. The blackmail dies in shame. The girls teach Funmaleo a new word, unashamed. Mama Grace wakes at 2 a.m., knowing. She calls Funmaleo to her small room behind the refuge kitchen. She is 70 now, thin again, smiling like sunrise. "I am going to rest," she says simply. "Tell the children I love them enough to break my heart open so theirs could mend." Funmaleo lies beside her on the narrow bed the way she did as a child after nightmares. They talk until dawn, about orange trees, about the night they ran, about forgiveness that does not need the offender to be sorry. When the sun touches the window, Mama Grace sighs once, a happy sound, and slips away holding her daughter's hand. The refuge girls line the courtyard singing Yoruba hymns as the body is carried out. They bury her beneath the orange tree that now bears fruit, so sweet people come from other villages to taste it. Funmaleo plants a second tree beside it and names it Grace. 25 years after the night she was first violated, Funmaleo stands in the rebuilt compound, now Bisola House National Headquarters, and watches Ronk, the first girl they saved, cut the ribbon for a new shelter in another state. Ronk is married now, with a daughter she named Grace Funmaleo. The little girl runs between the adults clutching a crayon drawing of a lioness. That night, all the old girls return, lawyers, doctors, teachers, mothers, who once slept terrified in those blue beds. They light lanterns and release them into the sky, hundreds of small suns rising above the village that once turned its back. Funmaleo watches them float and realizes the darkness has become starlight made by wounded hands. Funmaleo is gray now, slower in the mornings, but the children still call her Auntie Lioness. One quiet evening, she sits beneath the two orange trees with Omabalinal's daughter and Alayinka's son on her lap. They beg for the story about the brave girl who fought the biggest monster. She begins the way all the best stories begin in her village. Once upon a time, when the world was still learning how to be kind, and she tells them everything, leaving nothing out, because the next generation must never forget what silence costs. When she reaches the end, the little ones are asleep against her breast, breathing sweet orange-scented air. In the distance, the refuge girls are singing the song Mama Abeji taught long ago, the one about those who harm children never coming back. Funmaleo joins in under her breath, voice soft but steady. The trees rustle as though the ancestors are clapping. She smiles, closes her eyes, and knows the story is no longer only hers. It belongs to every girl who will ever walk through these gates and find the door held open by someone who was once broken but refused to stay that way. The circle is complete. The monster is dead. The lioness lives. If you really find it interesting, please subscribe, share, like for more videos.